bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya.
Khusus duri jantung kota Bogor sejuk dan indah, berjuta kenangan ada. Ku nikmati lengang malam dan suara gerimis hujan, basahi jiwaku tenang. Di sini ku berdiri, di sini ku bernyanyi tentang lembaran hidup, kenangan yang takkan pernah hilang. Bogor kota terindah, teduhkan suasana hati, temukan cinta sejati dan arti bahagia. Bogor kota terindah, bersemi mimpi-mimpiku, ciptakan masa depanku, suara doa di setiap langkahku. Susuri jantung kota Bogor sejuk dan indah, berjuta kenangan ada. Nikmati malam malam dan suara gerimis hujan, basahi jiwaku tenang. Di sini ku berdiri, di sini ku bernyanyi tentang lembaran hidup, kenangan yang takkan pernah hilang. Bogor kota terindah, teduhkan suasana
Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Terus berpacu dalam keunggulan, lincah pembelajar untuk kehidupan. Inilah semangat baru, tekad raih kesempatan, wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, Mr. Mario.
Yes, Pak Heryu.
Okay. Welcome to the webinar series of SV-IPB. First of all, I would like to welcome Dean of College of Vocational Studies, Arif Daryanto, and then Vice Dean of College, Vice Dean of Resources Collaboration and Development of Vocational Studies, IPB University. And also I would like to welcome to this amazing speaker, Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, who also a Vice Rector for Education and Student Affairs, and also a lecturer at Department of Community of Nutrition of IPB University. And also Dr. Risti Permani from Deakin University, Australia. For the next, I would like to invite Vice Dean of Resource, Collaboration and Development to give the opening speech. To Dr. Wawan Oktariza, you may please give the opening speech.
Derajat Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Heryu. Honorable Dr. Derajat Martianto, Vice Rector for Education and Student Affairs of IPB University, Dr. Arif Daryanto, Dean of College of Vocational Study, IPB University, Dr. Risti Permani, Lecturer of Deakin Business School, Deakin University, Australia, University Partner, Melbourne Polytechnic Australia, University of Western Australia, Panhal Laurenstein University of Supply Science, Netherlands, Tarlac University from Philippines, Ailo Science of Technology University, Guimara State University, National Taiwan University, Nagoya University, Tech Group Thailand, and Politeknik Pembangunan Pertanian Indonesia. Distinguished participant, lecturer, scientists, and students from around the world. So, welcome to the International Webinar Series 13 organized by College of Vocational Study IPB University Indonesia with the topic Agri-Food Supply Chains, a Food System Perspective in Pandemic Era. I am very happy and grateful because there are a lot of participants from all over the world that join this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic is putting unexpected stress on the food system, creating many challenges. What is remarkable, however, is the speed at which supply chain actors have been able to reorganize themselves to ensure sustainability food availability, at least in the developing world. Some topic jam remain and some disruption may emerge as COVID-19 continue to spread. The past response of the food supply chain has underlined the importance of an open and predictable international trade environment, which allow companies to take advantage of new sources of supply when existing sources are compromised. Policymakers have also largely avoided mistakes made during the food price crisis and have also taken other steps that have helped ensure the sustainability of the food supply chains. The food supply chains has changed due to the impact of COVID-19, namely on farm production, food processing, transport and logistics, as well as consumer. The main focus in passing the pandemic era in the food supply chain is to meet the availability of food, consumer access to food, the welfare of farmers, and all actors involved along the food supply chain. In farm production, there are obstacles to fulfillment, namely labor. The existence of lockdown makes labor in agriculture reduce production. In addition, the supply of seed is another problem where some seed are located abroad. COVID-19 has led to disruption in food processing industry, which have been affected by rule on social distancing, by labor shortage due to sickness, and by lockdown measure to contain the spread of the virus. In transport and logistic aspect, there is disrupted the mobility of product along food supply chains. In consumer aspect, there is limited access to get the food supply. Most of the grocery and restaurant are collapsed due to the lockdown. COVID-19 led shift consumer away from restaurant and grocery. Thus, it is important to learn about how to establish for food agriculture product along food supply chain in pandemic era. Thank you for International Collaboration Office and Directorate of Student Affairs IPB University for their funding of this webinar. Thank you for the speaker from IPB University, Dr. Derajat Martianto, and from Deakin University for supported and facility. Nevertheless, I would like to thank to the steering committee for the direction and to all members of the organizing committee for their hard work, which has made possible for us to be here today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope all participants can enjoy this webinar. Thank you, Mr. Heri Dianto.
Thank you, Dr. Wawan, for the opening speech. And now we move on to the next session. Can you share screen, please? Okay, before we come to the speaker session, I would like to invite Sylvia Dewi Sagita Andik to be the moderator. Before that, I will read his curriculum vitae. Her name is Sylvia Dewi Sagitandik at SCMSE. She's a lecturer of Management of Food Service and Nutrition, College of Vocational Studies. Her education background was Master of Management Science, Faculty Economic and Management of IPB University in 2018, Bachelor's of Family and Consumer Science Department, Faculty of Human Ecology, IPB University, 2014. Her working experience as a lecturer in College of Vocational Study, IPB University, from 2018 until now. As a research assistant in Indo Dairy Project, collaboration between Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research, Adelaide University and IPB University 2018 until now. She's also a researcher in research collaboration between Faculty Economic and Management, IPB University, and Faculty Economic and Management, University Putra Malaysia in 2017. To Sylvia Dewi Sagitandik, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heryu, for the opportunity that has been given to me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
His Excellency Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, MSc, Vice Rector for Education and Student Affairs at IPB University, and also as a speaker in this webinar. The Honorable Dr. Insinyur Arif Daryanto, Master of Economic, the Dean of College of Vocational Studies IPB University, the Honorable Vice Deans, Dr. Insinyur Wawan Oktariza and Dr. Bagus Purwanto. The Honorable, our speakers, Dr. Risti Permani, Lecturer of Deakin Business School, Deakin University. Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this webinar. Good morning, good afternoon for all participants all over the world. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sylvia Dewi Sagitandik, and I'm as a moderator for today. Welcome to SV Webinar Series 13 entitled Agri-Food Supply Chain, a Food System Perspective in the Pandemic Era. This webinar is also the part of the first summer course on nutrition, agriculture, and sustainable food system in tropical countries, organized by College of Vocational Studies, IPB University. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the presentation, I would like to inform you the schedule of the webinar. This webinar divided into 4 sessions. The first session is the first speaker presentation for around 30 minutes, followed by the discussion for 15 minutes. And the third session is the second speaker presentation for 13 minutes, followed by discussion for 50 minutes. For participants, if you have a question, you can chat in the chat window, or you can ask to the speaker by turn on your microphone during the discussion session. Okay, before we start, I would like to introduce our first speaker curriculum vitae. The first speaker is Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, MSc. Is there any curriculum vitae presentation? Could share it, Mr. Hari Otang. Okay, before waiting for the presentation of curriculum vitae, Dr. Insinyur Derajat, I will read. Okay. Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, now as a Vice Rector for Education and Student Affairs and lecturer at Department of Community Nutrition, IPB University. And for the education background, he's got the bachelor degree in Community Nutrition and Family Resource, IPB University, and then continue his master degree in Community Nutrition and Family Resource IPB University, and then she earned the PhD in Human Nutrition and Food Nutrition. PhD in Human Nutrition and Food, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Philippines. Okay, let's welcome our fourth speaker, Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto. Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Sylvie, as a moderator. And of course, thank you very much to the Dean of the IPB Vocational School, Dr. Arif Daryanto, for inviting me to, for giving me the opportunity to discuss with all of you, all of the participants around the world regarding the food supply chains, particularly during the pandemic era. And of course, thanks for Dr. Wawan Oktarisa, the Vice Dean, for very nice opening. And I think it's very comprehensive opening speech. And of course, good afternoon for Dr. Risti, the Dean faculty member. We're still very young, yeah. It's already internationally recognized. Congratulations. And to all of the participants and university partner. This, I would like to share my presentation, and hopefully you can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm invited to join this webinar to present the agri-food supply chain, a food system perspective in pandemic era, particularly the case of Indonesia. And I think this is my simple presentation, maybe hopefully less than 30 minutes, but I do expect that we will have some discussion, yeah, rather than my presentation, so we can learn each other. This is the outline of my presentation. As you can see, first I will discuss about the FAO food system wheel. So we will have the same understanding what the food system is. And the food system framework, which is, came from other sources, set of FAO. And then what are the negative impact of COVID-19 that actually has already mentioned in detail by Pak Wawan previously, but maybe I will explain in other perspective. And then after that, I will shifting to the discussion on focusing in the agri-food supply chains during the pandemic situation. The discussion will be focused on the food supply chain under normal situation, as well under the pandemic situation, including the supply chains for the subsidized foods for the needy community. And then the discussion will be closed by presentation of the post-pandemic strategy to achieve better diet and nutrition for all. Okay, as you can see, this is the food system wheel which is published by FAO. So although we are not talking about food, but actually the purpose of the food system, the final objective of the food system is how to bring people, how to bring human into the better condition, which is characterized by the better food diversity consumption and better nutritional status. So at the moment, if we talk about the food system wheel, it is actually encompassed of the entire range of the actor. You can see the actor and their interlinkages, value adding activities involved on the production, aggregation, you can see in the left figure, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food. Even among the disposal of food that originate from agriculture, this is including the animal husbandry, of course, forestry, and of course the fisheries. And parts of broader economic, societal, and natural environmental in which they are embodied. So this is actually a very big concept. Food system is very big concept that we have to fully understand. And now we will move to the sustainable food system framework. Where you can see here, this is a very complex system actually. And again, I would like to mention here that although we are talking about food system, but again, the purpose of this food system, the end point of this food system is how to achieve nutrition and health outcomes of the consumers. And the impact of the food system supposed to be larger than food itself. It is supposed to have impact on social, economic, and also environment. Of course, the basis of the system is the food supply chains. The availability of food production, food produce, whether it is domestically produced or imported, and then the storage and distribution, processing and packaging, retail and market that are in the frame of the food supply chains will affect the next subsystem of the food system. And you know that the world now facing various problems on malnutrition. So the multiple burden of malnutrition consists of undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, overweight, particularly the obesity, and different form of malnutrition can coexist with the same country, the same household, and even the same individual during their life course. So this is very complex situation actually. If we look at the Global Nutrition Report in 2017, it was so that 88% of the countries are reeling from 2 of 3 forms of malnutrition. So no country is actually free from the malnutrition. If we talk about malnutrition, that means you can offer nutrition or undernutrition. So 88% of the country facing the malnutrition problems, either over, either under, or combination of over and under malnutrition. So it has affect more than it's almost 1 billion people in the world. So what does that mean? It means that if we are talking about food, please do not limit it yourself. Do not limit it ourselves to talk only the food production, to talk only the food supply chains, because all of those aspects, particularly this food production, food availability, will finally affect the quality of human resources. So, does that mean that when we have a plan in nutrition, if we want to plan the food production, if we want to plan the food supply, we're supposed to consider the malnutrition that we are facing. So when we talk about a food planning, food system planning, so usually we start from the right side, from the problem that we are facing, problem of diet, quality of diet, problem of nutrition, and then after that, we then plan what we have to provide in our country, in our region, what kind of food to be produced, what kind of food to be purchased from other countries, etc., etc. So the food system is really a very, very complex system. And then so many factors affecting from the biophysical and environmental affecting the food supply chains. Of course, the technology also affecting the food supply chains. Innovation is needed to improve the productivity, to improve the quality of food product, etc., etc. And even the political and economic also driving all of the decision in what we will produce, what we will buy from other countries, etc., etc. And of course, when people deciding to consume food, sociocultural aspect also have a very, very strong influence. Actually, food production is a culture. Food consumption is defined by culture. So food which are produced, which are consumed, are defined by culture. So everything is related to culture, everything is related to political and economic driver, and also available technology, and also, of course, biophysical and environmental drivers. And of course, when we are talking about the food demand, it will be uh, affected also by the demographic drivers, whether the number, whether the sex composition, whether where they stay, uh, in urban or in rural. Of course, everything will affect the food system. And the betterment of the food system, of course, will continue to have a big influence on the sustainable development goals. So if we have a problem in the system, or in the even in the one system that will make all system have problems, it will also affect the sustainable development goals that we have already set the objectives. Okay, then you can see this figure. This is the based on the publication of Lancet just last year. It is very nice figure to remind all of us here that when we talk about the food system, actually two objectives supposed to be achieved. First, of course, we are as a consumer supposed to be healthy by consuming the food. And of course, to continue to be able to have a good quality of food for the next year, for the next 10 years, for the next century, we have to, of course, to maintain our planet, to be able to sustainably produce food in good quality, in safe quality. Of course, to do that, we have to improve our diet quality by implementing the healthy diets. Healthy diets actually can be achieved by practicing so many type of diets. But science usually mention that the best diet is actually, it's supposed to be most from plant rather than animal sources. It doesn't mean that animal sources are not good. Of course, animal sources are very, very good food sources of protein, um, minerals, and vitamins. This is very important, of course. But the balance of the diet is very much important to be able to avoid the high burden to our earth. You know that based on that, we have to choose the strategy how we will maintain our earth by doing a good choice, yeah, in our diets. So we're supposed to be to implement the win-win strategy rather than lose or win, or lose-lose strategy, or win or lose strategy. Win-win strategy, that's mean that we, of course, our diet is supposed to be most based on the plant rather than animal in the balanced nutrition standard, of course. A loss-win, that's mean that our planet is good, but our diet is bad. Lose-lose, that's mean our diet is bad and our planet is bad. And the win-lose, that's mean that our diet is good in quality, but it will have a very big burden on our planet. So based on this figure, I think I would like to remind all of us that what we are eating now, what we choose to be put in the plate, in our mouth, in our body, will greatly affect the sustainability of food production for the next 10 years, next 50 years, and so on and so forth. So this is the beautiful perspective of a food system, actually, a sustainable food system. And the next, I would like to give a simple explanation from this figure that unfortunately we are now facing the pandemic. It's already mentioned by Pak Wawan actually that the pandemic have a very, very great impact on food system, from the food production, transportation and logistics, because the movement of people is very limited. And then, of course, economic activities will be affected as well. And social gathering, social interaction will be also limited. People practicing the social distancing and even working from home, even the student learning from home, etc., etc. So the food production, transportation and logistic, economic activities are negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, because everybody now limited their activities. Everybody even lose their jobs. Property level increase, food access reduce, food supply and stock, of course, reduce, and food share is also food share expenditure, even food expenditure, food spending is also reduced. And all of this situation and in their combination, of course, will affect the malnutrition, will cause the malnutrition. It will be very big problem for the developing country, even for underdeveloped country, because the stunting, which is usually still prevalent, and underweight, also wasting, can explode, can increase significantly, and hunger may be the next problem. We do not hope this situation, of course, but it is possible, can be happen, particularly in those areas when we do not have, when they do not have the good resources, sufficient resources, food production, etc. And sometimes it is not emerging in the hunger, but macronutrient deficiency can be able to exist in this situation. People maybe still have enough carbohydrate sources to eat, and also some macronutrient sources to eat, but they do not have macronutrient sources to eat because of the limiting production, because of the limiting logistic, because of the limited purchasing power, etc., due to the pandemic. Okay, this is just a figure in the Indonesian situation. Actually, the economic of Indonesia just increased better, just increased sharply actually in the last decade. But unfortunately, this pandemic really have a great effect, a negative effect. Some of the people who just shifting from poor to near poor, or from near poor to the middle classes, is now going back to the previous economic situation. And if some people from the middle classes has also become poor, so the situation is, of course, will have a great impact on the food access and food consumption, and of course, the food quality of the diet. And on the right side, you can see, side, you can see that the problem of COVID-19 pandemic will have an impact on every sectors, but with different impact, of course. There is sectors that receive a very high impact, particularly the hotel, restaurant, transportation, etc., because people are limiting to move from one to other areas. And there is a medium impact also, particularly from the multi-finance, automotive sectors, and even mall, department stores, etc. And the impact is, as you can see, the e-commerce, etc., including the packaging, staple food, etc. All of this situation may affect the poverty level of Indonesia, and it is according to the Smeru study, there will be around 30% of the household will be potentially food secure because of the limiting purchasing power, because of the decrease of their income, because some of them are lost their job, etc., etc. So this is a great challenge for the Indonesian, and also actually it has also happened for at the other countries. I think it is globally affect the economic situation. So if we look at the area in Indonesia, you can see Indonesia is very big countries. We have 17,000, around 17,000 islands. And you can see food supply chain, food logistics has become very difficult actually, because you know that the main staple food, paddy or rice, is produced in Java Island, and some in South Sulawesi Island, and also Sumatra Island. The consumer is around Indonesia. So the logistic is among the very challenging problems in Indonesia during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see that the further the distance from the food supply sources will have a big problem. There is a big problem also in Java, Sumatra, Sulawesi, or Kalimantan, particularly not because of the food supply, but more on the logistic problem, and also the reduce of economic situation because of the loss of job, etc., etc. So due to this, we predict that there will be increase the number of POU. POU is prevalence of undernourished, and NOU is the number of undernourished people. Although we increase significantly, we have a better situation in POU and NOU in the last 3 years, but unfortunately, the situation now is it's very bad. We just predict, we just waiting for the new data, and we think that the POU, it can be increased in more than 10%, but hopefully not. But yeah, based on the latest national socioeconomic data, it can be back to more than 2 digits. It is good that we have already 1 digit in 2019, 2017 and 2018, but we just worry that in 2019 and 2020 we'll have 2 digits. So this is the challenge of our country of Indonesia in facing the COVID-19. So let's talk about the supply chain. Usually in Indonesia, we have a complex traditional supply chain. As you can see in the this figure, in the upper figure, that yeah, from the producer, it is usually go to the large distributor and the medium distributor, small distributor, going to the big market, what we call in Indonesia as pasar induk, and then to the retail markets, and from the retail market sometimes from the retail, small retailer, warung, etc. It's very, very long and very complicated supply chain in Indonesia. And what is the impact? The impact is the consumer, and consumer of course will pay more, and the producer will gain lower. So the middleman, the middle players will get more, and this means that people will buy food in yeah, more expensive rather than the simple supply chain, of course. So the challenge for Indonesian is how to make the supply chain, food supply chain, is become shorter, shorter, and shorter. The less the player is better. And the other supply chain type in Indonesia is the direct supply chain to end consumer, as you can see in the lower picture or lower PQ. This is a more efficient supply chain. And of course, we can make it more efficient if we can remove the player in the middle, of course. But I think for the Indonesian, we still need the middle, but not too much player, of course, yeah, to make the producer have a better gain of the profit gain, and the consumer can pay at the lower price, at the fair price. But in fact, the upper picture is still more dominant at present rather than the lower. Although the yeah, technological platform has already yeah, play more and more significant from the large distributor is now come directly to the groceries. In every places there are plenty of groceries like Indomart, and then Alfamart, etc., etc. So hopefully it will reduce the cost of transportation, it will reduce the margin cost, and then the end consumer will have a better price, and the producer have a better profit. And during the during the COVID-19 pandemic, now we have to think about how to bring the subsidized food to the most needy groups, the most needy community, because everything is not limited. As Pak Wawan mentioned, that there are lockdown or semi-lockdown in some areas that makes the distribution, the logistic has been yeah, facing difficulties to people cannot easily now moving from one region to other region to bring foods, because although food is a special cases, yeah, a special it is no what do you call it, is free to transport food, but in fact still that logistic is affected. So what we are doing now is of course using the government policy, using the government authority, we can mobilize all of our resources to bring the food subsidies, subsidized food into the community, to the household, to the individual who facing difficulties in getting food at the proper quality, at the proper number, at the proper amount, by using all of the moda transportation, including in Indonesia, we have Gojek, Grab, etc., working together with the government to bring the food for the community for the subsidized food. So the subsidized food is actually do not have a problem in the logistic, because the government has their authority to maintain that. But most problem usually occur for the food produced by small farmers, distributed commercially, of course. So you can see here the food chain for the commercial food supply, yeah, during the pandemic situation. It is almost like for the subsidized food, but of course there is no government, the government authority is limited to support this situation. This is the problem with this commercial supply chain is it's depend on the situation in every region. If there is a big problem, we usually have a map. In if it has come from red area, that means there are so many positive people infected by COVID-19. It is usually very difficult to go outside the region, and there is a limitation for the transportation, limitation for the people movement, etc., etc. And it will, of course, affect the producers. When the producer came from the red area, for example, it is very difficult for them to sell their product to the markets, to other regions, and finally they will have difficulties in marketing their product. and the food chain, of course, will very much disturbed. This situation actually sometimes is helped by the role of the community who are using, for example, the social media, etc., to promote the food production of the people that came from the red area to be brought to other areas. But it is yeah, it is helpful. It is a little bit helping, but not totally solve the problems. So I think this is the most challenging situation in Indonesia. It's a very big countries with a very sometimes the distance between the producer area and the consumer is 100, even 1,000 kilometers. So it is a big problem if we do not help them, particularly if there is no regulation that make the distribution of the food from the producers to the consumers become easier. And that's why all of the people in Indonesia now trying to help the farmers, help the horticulture farmers, the fishermen, the breeders, etc., to bring them closer to the off-takers and even to the consumers. People are now working with using the technology. So many producers as now have a direct contact with the off-takers. That is the beauty of the problem. I said the beauty of the problem because now everybody thinking how to make the food supply chain can work normally under the abnormal situation. And thanks to the technology that make all of us become to be able to help the farmers to have contact with the off-takers, and thanks also to the off-takers who are also able to maintain the situation by helping the farmers. So everybody have their roles, their positive role, and hopefully the situation can be maintained not only during the pandemic era, but also after the pandemic era. And as a closing, the post-pandemic strategy to be implemented is first, of course, we have to implement the sustainable food system. By implementing the sustainable food system, we will have we can optimizing our local potency and also local biodiversity. And then, of course, we just learned that if there is a problem with logistics, particularly for the imported food, for example, Indonesia have so many big amount import from other countries for the wheat flour, for example, wheat, and then animal products, etc. We will face a very hard situation if we cannot develop our food production, if we cannot strengthen food sovereignty and self-sufficiency. And therefore, in the future, the post-pandemic situation, food sovereignty and food self-sufficiency supposed to be our top priority strategy in food production and food supply. And then, of course, shortened supply chain is very much important. It is good not only for the producers and also for the consumer because they will receive a better price even for the consumer and the producer. But it is also good to the environment because you do not need to spend to burn so many fuel, etc., etc. And then the other thing is reduce food loss and waste. Indonesia is the second country who has a very high food waste, and of course, the situation is to remind us that we cannot waste our food. We have to really efficient in using food because if there is a problem in logistics, if there is a problem in the supply chain, then we will have a big problem in our food consumption. And then increasing food production, increasing food supply be able also to be encouraged by reducing the food loss, because food loss, loss double S, yeah, because food loss will increase the food supply at the same time, not only increasing the food production. And urban and suburban farming is also very important in the future, because that when logistic is a problem, distribution of food from the far areas, the agricultural areas to the urban areas, then urban and suburban farming at least able to reduce the scarcity of the food in the urban areas. And of course, the better good agricultural practice to improve food safety is also very much important in this situation, to reduce the possibility of infectious disease that can reduce the immunity, and then possibility to get infected by the COVID-19. So by implementing food system eating, sustainable food system eating, we can able to achieve a better situation after the pandemic era. Okay, that is all that I can present. Thank you very much. And we are waiting for the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Insinyur Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto, for the presentation. It's very interesting presentation. So for all the participants, if you have questions, you can chat on the chat box on your screen. Or if you want to ask directly to the speaker, you can click the raise hand symbol on your screen. But still not, there is no question. So during we are waiting the question for participant, Dr. Derajat, may I ask some question? One question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. May I ask one question during we
Okay.
waiting for the participant? Okay.
Okay.
We know that COVID-19 has big impact along food supply chain. But I guess, I think that the farmers is the bottom of the line of the food supply that's suffering about the COVID-19. So, in the government perspective of policy, how we solve it or how we deal with that problem for the farmer, especially for the farmers.
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. I think first, of course, we have to protect our farmers. Why? Because without food, we cannot live. So how we can protect our farmers? How we can help our farmers? First, of course, you know that now many people in the urban areas lost their jobs, and usually they go back to the their village, their city of origins. So I think the people in the villages supposed to be, the government in the origin area supposed to implement the very strict health screening for those who are coming from the urban areas, to avoid the infectious disease spread sharply or fastly in the urban areas. Why? Because if the people in the urban areas are also infected, are also affected by the COVID-19, then they cannot work, they cannot produce the food. And it will be a big problem for the countries. That's the first. So then the second is the farmers need incentives, because usually at this situation, the food demand decrease because of the decreasing of purchasing power. Then the farmers supposed to be given incentive to produce, for example, also incentive, input incentive, or sometimes even the output incentive. Without that, the farmers will facing difficulties, because there is a very difficult thing, yeah, to a very difficult situation for them to bring their products directly to the market, directly to the consumer, if they do not have any um, instrument to produce food. And the third is, of course, how we can assist the farmers to sell their products at the better price. That's means that the government and also other component of the community, such as what I mentioned before, the off-takers, the marketplace, and even the traders are working together with the farmers to be able to bring their products directly into the consumers or directly into the off-takers to have a good or better prices of their commodities. That is at least the three things that we can assist the farmers to be able to make them continue to produce their food, and also to be able to them to have a good price and good results of their food, their production activities. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Derajat. As we know, now we have the e-commerce platform for the agriculture product. The platform is Tani Hub. Tani Hub is the farmer can selling their product.
Tani Hub, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So the next question from the Samira. I think it's the same question about the strategy. Okay, next from the Muhammad Eki. He's asked about the implementing technology in food supply chain. As we know, it's not easy to bring the technology for small farmer. Whether obstacle in having network, range, or using technology. According to you, is there some ways to overcome this problem?
Pardon, Muhammad, yeah?
Muhammad.
I'd like to ask about implementing technology in food supply chains, okay? As we know, it is not easy to bring technology for small farmer, yes? Whether obstacle in having network range. Okay, of course, now we have to thinking that farmers not a single household farmer. So the most important thing is how to increase the what do you call the economic of scale of the farmers, the size of the farmers by organizing them into the, for example, BUMDes, Badan Usaha Milik Desa, or cooperative, etc., etc. If the size is bigger, then the technology can be implemented more efficiently. Because with technology also, the productivity is tend to lower. So it is not about the technology, but how we can implement the technology at the proper way. So I just propose that better to organize the farmers at the, for example, as I mentioned before, at the cooperative or BUMDes, etc. So we just can, and of course, it is still need other support from the government, other incentive from the government, or other community who are really concerned to the farmers' life. Okay.
Thank you. And then the next question from the Vira Nindita. This asks about what should the sector that's affected by high impact to survive in the long term in this era?
Okay, of course, everybody now is affected, but for the most severe, they have to change their strategy. Otherwise, they cannot maintain the situation. And then the first that's supposed to be done is how to make our the sectors efficiently, doing the sectors efficiently. That is the most important, to reduce, to cut the spending that it is not important, And as you can see now, for example, yeah, there are many offices, many industry firms, many what do you call? Yeah, industry who before have the very big offices in the cities now tend to reduce the size of the offices. They tend to use, for example, the small or even better for them to use the technology and let the workers working at their home, WFH ya bahasa Indonesianya ya, working from home, etc., etc. That is the kind of efficiency that they can do. And of course, they have to really understand what the the most obstacle, and then they of course they have to make a priority. What are the big challenges, and then they have to remove that one by one. So it will need time, of course. It will need investment, new investment maybe, yeah. But if they want to be able to what do you call to untuk bertahan ya for the long time, they have to do that. The most important thing is first they have to they have to make everything become efficient. And that is actually what we are doing now. For example, in our university, now everything is become efficient. So many things has become efficient because we are not using technology for just for this. This webinar is among the example. If it is done at the ICC, for example, we have to meet there. There are costs of transportation. There are costs of consumption, etc., etc. That will be very expensive. But now we can learn each other, no matter that one in Australia, one in Indonesia, one in Papua, etc. It is still, we can do that, we can learn each other. So efficiency is the key of the how we can maintain our, how we can survive and go back to the better situation in the next future.
Okay, thank you. So efficiency, especially maybe in operational cost?
Yeah, it can be anything, particularly in operational cost that can be reduced.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rajat. And then the next question for our Dean, Parif. Do you believe that agriculture will be the savior of our hit pandemic economy? What are the roles of university?
Oh, it is for me?
Yes,
from Pak Arif.
From Pak Arif.
Oh, okay. What are the right policies?
Yeah.
To combat the triple burden of malnutrition, stunting and wasting and macronutrient deficiency and obesity, as you said.
I mean, I think the previous question from Pak Arif.
Focus more on his expertise, how to combat the triple burden of malnutrition. I think it is very important for the student.
Okay. For the last question, Pak Arif, yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay. You know that if we have a triple burden of malnutrition, that means that there is a sorry, I lost my question. Wait a minute.
I will repeat again the question from Pak Arif.
Okay. Sorry, I cannot. Okay.
What are the right? Have you read it, sir?
The right policies, yeah. Okay. You know that stunting is a complex problem compared to wasting and micronutrient deficiency. And obesity is other problem. Stunting is usually, this is beyond food. What I mean is, of course, the people who are stunting usually came from the low economic low economic status. Their food consumption is very bad. Usually, it is very poor quality, and at the same times, they have a problem with the environment, particularly the hygiene and sanitation. They have lack access to the water sources, the clean water sources, to the disposal, etc., etc. And then this is a complex problem. We need not only a food approach to remove the stunting, to reduce the stunting prevalence, but we need so many other strategies, including the infrastructure, etc. For wasting is particularly due to the lack of food or food shortage. So it is very easy to remove actually this problem whenever we can provide the food subsidy, for example, or can increase the food supply or increase the food purchasing power, etc., then the problem will be removed. Micronutrient deficiency, it is actually also related with the socioeconomic status, because you know that the nutrient, micronutrient is usually highly content of the animal sources of food. But there is a very easy and very cost effective policy and programs that can be implemented, what we call as food fortification programs. Food fortification is the most cost-effective intervention to reduce the micronutrient deficiency, and even also have to reduce the stunting. So micronutrient deficiency can be easily reduced by implementing the food fortification. The problem of food fortification is actually, although it is very cheap, but you have to be able to make the industry to follow the rule, because producers, the big producer of food, it is sometimes do not want to or do not willing to fortify their products because of many reasons. So the government rules to implement what we call as a mandatory food fortification is very important. So there is a mandatory regulation supposed to be implemented. And if it is implemented, then a micronutrient deficiency can be removed easily. And then obesity is also among the big problem that we have facing now. It is actually because of the transition situation from the low economic to the higher economic status of the community. And this is usually due to the increased consumption of high sugar and high fat foods. So obesity actually among the most difficult thing to be removed, because it is not only food approach, but it is more on the food, on the behavior approach, how to live, how to practice the healthy lifestyle, to practice what do you call active lifestyle, etc., etc. A set of food is very much important. So this is also beyond food actually, just like a stunting. But using the policy that now implemented by the government, I think it is difficult to directly remove the stunting, wasting, micronutrient deficiency, and obesity at the same time, because it needs a different strategy. We have implementing all of the strategy needed, but the priority is supposed to be placed for the removal of the stunting and obesity. And it will need not only food approach, but also a food behavior approach, communication, a good and effective communication approach, etc. So that is my answer, Pak Arif.
Thank you, Dr. Derajat, for the explanation. It's very complex. And I think it's enough for the discussion with Dr. Derajat because the limited time. So we will continue to the next speaker. Before that, I I say thank you for your sharing, Dr. Derajat, and thank you for your useful information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we will continue for the second speaker presentation. Let's, before we start the presentation, I will read the curriculum vitae from the Dr. Risti Permani. Dr. Risti Permani, as a lecturer at the Deccan Business School University, and she got the bachelor degree of Science in Statistics, IPB University, and then she's continue her master degree in a Master of Economics, University Adelaide, and then she got the PhD at the Doctor of Philosophy in Economics, University of Adelaide. Working experience. Now, she is a senior lecturer in agribusiness, Department of Economics, Deccan Business School, Deccan University. And then she's assistant director or senior economist in the ASEAN Integration Monitoring Directorate, ASEAN Economic Committee Department, ASEAN Sekretariat Jakarta, Indonesia. Let's welcome to the Dr. Risti Permani. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sylvia. So can you hear me clearly? Just to check first. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So good afternoon from Victoria, Melbourne, and I think it's good morning in Indonesia, and I'm not sure the time difference in other regions. So first I would like to say thank you very much to Dr. Arif Daryanto, the Dean of College of Vocational Studies, for inviting me to this webinar. I always feel home, like every time I do presentation to IPB, originally from Indonesia, and my family still live in Bogor. So I think the presentation that Dr. Derajat Martianto provided earlier has given me a context to my presentations, which I will share now. So when I was asked to present at this webinar, I think at that time the approach was about the sustainable agriculture, and listening to the presentation and also the opening by Pak Wawan, I think the topic of sustainable agriculture is also relevant when we talk about the context of COVID-19. So that's the perspective that I'm going to use in my presentation. Some of the case studies are taken from Australia, some are from Indonesia. But I think some of the message that I want to highlight here is that there are some similarities in terms of the conceptual frameworks. And I'm sure these conceptual frameworks will also be relevant when you talk about, let's say, technologies in Japan, Thailand, Philippines, Netherlands, and other parts of the world. And so just a bit of background, like why innovation and why sustainable agriculture. And one perspective and one of the driver that I really want to highlight, and a lot of people sort of like put as a second priority during this COVID-19 pandemic, is that climate change is real. If you look at a year ago, the World Economic Forum highlighted that the climate-related issues dominated all of the top 5 long-term risks in terms of likelihood. So it was high on the agenda, but I guess the question is whether this COVID-19 pandemic sort of shifted this attention away from the climate change. It doesn't necessarily mean that, issues such as the health issues as well as the economic impacts of the pandemic is not important. But I think, like how we can then integrate between this COVID-19 recovery program and whilst at the same time continuing our sustainable agriculture development programs. So just a bit of reminder about what's happening with our world. And again, the media attention has been declining since the start of the COVID-19, the attention on the climate change. So we're really facing the global warming. And if you look at 2019, as you can see on the slide, the global average temperature was 1.1 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial period. And it's not only just about the global warming. We've seen increased frequency of natural disasters, and obviously agriculture being highly reliant on natural resources that would affect not only the production but also the distribution of the food and agriculture products. And so I guess the question for the agriculture sector, not only the policymakers, but also all different stakeholders, including universities, students, researchers, and also the industry, is that, what kind of innovations that could help address this? As Pak Derajat mentioned, the food system is a complex system. So I don't think it's 3 hours webinar will be sufficient to discuss, all issues that we're facing. But then, what's the solution that we can propose? And in particular, what is the role of innovations? And is it the best time for us to actually think of innovations and in the post pandemic program? So what I put on the slide are just, like some of the issues that we often hear about agriculture. Social license might not be an issue in Indonesia, at least yet. So the concept of social license was stemmed from the mining industry, especially in Australia. At the time, the mining industry was put under pressure to contribute to the environmental programs and so on. But now, given the environmental impacts of agriculture, this concept of social license to farming, meaning that the agriculture sector needs to demonstrate how the sector can contribute to the environment, is also gaining some interest, not only from the policymakers but also the public in general. So yeah, how could innovations help? And I think try to relate that to the COVID-19 pandemic strategy. One of the reference that we can look at is this report by the Vivid Economics. So the report looks at 17 countries' stimulus package and sort of like classify the different programs under each of the countries' program into environmentally related and non-environmentally related. And out of the 8.3 trillion US dollars that the 17 countries have invested, only 3.5 are environmentally related. So if you look at Indonesia here, so sorry if the graph is not really clear. So it's a bit of red. There's a negative contribution to the green stimulus index. And whilst the European Union countries sort of like playing a lead. So if you look at Germany, I think they committed to 50 billion US dollars in the green recovery package. Some, I think like Italy committed to develop the bike lanes. So all of the green environmentally related programs. So I guess given that the audience probably are not only from Indonesia, I think the question is, what sort of innovation that you think will be relevant to your particular country context and the different options that you can probably consider. So this will be my plan for this session. I'm going to start with very basic definition of what is innovation, just quickly show some of the advanced technologies in agriculture that many of these are still at the trial stage. And then I think a bit different to what a lot of people think when they talk about innovation and technology is that I really want to bring back this concept of sustainable agriculture, which I think a lot of people forget. Like when we talk about innovation, we always think about the big machinery, the big tractor on the farm. But actually, there are a lot of innovative practices that probably are relevant or similar to what farmers did, decades ago. So it's sort of like coming back to the nature movement. And I also want to highlight that innovation is not only about technology, but it's also about a new or improved business model. And I think Pak Arif is actually the expert in this area. So we're lucky to have him on this webinar too. All right, so just quickly about innovation. So the definition that I like to refer is by the OECD, is about the implementation of a new and significantly improved product, process, marketing, or an organizational method. So again, it's not just about a new product. It can also be about new process or marketing method or organizational method. And if we look at the, like the different classifications, and again, we can see, like, for example, with the second dot point here, is not just about new products, but also improving the existing products. So I think it's always useful to have this in mind, when we think about what sort of innovation that we want to introduce at our farm or business or whatever it is. What is the impact of that innovation? So is it about just increasing the output because you still need to cover the increased cost, or is it about reducing the cost, because that's also part of this improving efficiency strategy that Pak Derajat mentioned earlier? Or is it about quality enhancing? So it might increase your cost, it might not necessarily increase your quantity, but if it increase your quality, that can actually increase your profits. Or is it about innovation that help protect the health or environment? So I think it's always useful to understand, again, what is the problem that your business is facing or your organization is facing, and what is the type of innovation that is needed. And when we think about what is called as the linear model of innovation, a lot of people think that it's a linear process, it's a one-way process. We do research and development, find some new ideas, or it's called invention, going through the design and development stage, and before then this innovation is being developed and then commercialized. But actually, if you look at it a bit closer, it's a complex system. It's another complex system, the innovation ecosystem. There are a lot of different variables that we have to consider. The consumption segment is a critical part, again, as Pak Derajat mentioned earlier, when we think of the on-farm innovation adoption, because everything in the supply chain is about demand-driven activities. And there's also sort of like a two-way relationship here. The users will then provide to the technology creators or developers to then improve the technology itself. Okay, and it is developing an innovation from scratch is pretty much it's time consuming, and it can be quite costly. And so most of the strategies that a lot of businesses are doing is to use the existing or the already available technology in the market. So I just quickly summarize, some of the sort of like a checkpoints when we think of innovation. Is it the right technology for me? If you hear presentation by a lot of successful CEOs, they would start with explaining the problem that they see in the community and then think of how they can contribute. You can hear about Nadim, for example, when he talked about Gojek. He identified the problem, among the women who work but then still want to provide food and all that sort of story. So we need to understand what is actually the problem that we want to address. And if you talk at the country level, for example, for Indonesia, I guess the question is what is the key problem that we want to address first? Because sometimes, when we look at, I think, the food system, it's already complex and we don't know where to start. So I guess this sort of framework is relevant not only, like for the business level, but also at the policy level. And then once we know what is the problem, then we have to identify what are the technology options. Again, there are so many technology out there. In many cases, you don't really have to invent your own machinery or tools or even models. It's great if you can, but you don't always have to feel that need. You should always identify what is already available first. And then we start looking at us being part of this innovation system. Who are the actors that can affect your decision making? If you want to use technology A, whether there are suppliers of the technology, where can you buy the technology? Where can you get the support for this technology? how can you get the maintenance support and all those different actors that will play a role in your decision making. And in that context, the use of the flows of information in the supply chain is really important, because what you want to see is that the innovation that you do at your business or at your organization is then being rewarded by another actor in the supply chain, whether that's through increased price, or then you get market access to a market that you initially couldn't access. There are different ways to identify these gains from adopting innovation. So, and it's always important to do this, monitoring and evaluation. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's always useful to sort of like a step back and see again whether this technology actually works, and we should do that regularly. And sometimes the innovation itself is simple, but when we look at the adoption process is often not that straightforward. And I was quite lucky to get involved in a dairy project with Pak Arif a couple of years ago when I was still in Adelaide. And I think one of the things that I like when I talked to one of the dairy farmers about the use of plastic versus the stainless steel milk cans or buckets if it's plastic. It sounds very simple just to transform from the plastic one to the steel one, but when you try to understand why some people still use the plastic bucket, some will still even use the like an old paint buckets, or which is not doesn't look very hygiene. I guess a lot of people will think, oh, that's just because it is more costly to buy the stainless steel one. But then if we go further, then we start seeing, or there's that also that perception that the stainless steel is heavier, and if it is the role of the women to bring this bucket to the side of the road, so that the cooperatives guy or the milk agent can collect, then there's also that gender effect, and this perception then obviously can affect their decision making in buying the bucket. And we should also check about the availability on markets. Is it easy to find this stainless steel bucket? I guess this day everything is online, and I've checked last time, it's quite easy to find it online. But if you're looking at villages when they have limited options to the production inputs, then again that can also affect their decision making. And that's not to mention about what is the return that they would get when they changing their plastic bucket into the stainless steel one, whether the improved quality that they expect they would get from this adoption of innovation, which is not really innovation, is actually being rewarded by the processor. Because if there's no quality-based pricing, for example, then that such a return is not really evident, at least from the perspective of the farmers. If you talk about advanced technology, I think those who live in developed countries would, see that this as sort of like a common view at farm. Like I live in Warrnambool, about 3 hours from Melbourne. So it's in the middle of the agribusiness area. So I can see dairy cows pretty much, and also beef cattle pretty much everywhere. So, big machinery, genetics, this cattle is used sort of like a Fitbit for cattle. There's also virtual fencing that is developed, so that instead of the farmers need to master the cattle or to hold the cattle, then this virtual fencing will give a bit of a sign to the animals so that they can still be in the area that the farmers want them to be. And there's even use, I think this is taken from New Zealand. There's the use of drones to again master the animals. So and the drone can also bark, like a dog. So this kind of technology is useful because the key problem is because there's a labor shortage in a lot of developed countries such as Australia and New Zealand, and not to mention the high labor cost. Right? Another advanced technology is blockchain. You probably have heard about that. I think there's been some discussion on how to then sort of integrate between this blockchain and the e-commerce development. But even in Australia, blockchain in a lot of sectors are still at the trial stage. So I don't think it will grow significantly in the near future in Indonesia. The Internet of Things is another, I think, a big word in ag tech sector, the agriculture technology sector. So it's pretty much about connecting the different devices from sensors to the computer-based software through the internet. So everything that can be put on the internet then can be integrated through this Internet of Things system. At the moment, the Victorian government here in Australia is doing quite a large-scale IoT trial. So again, it's still at the trial stage. So to incentivize dairy farmers to use the IoT, with the support with different applications in precision agriculture and so on. So I'm not going to go into details on that, but just to give you a bit of idea about the advanced technology. And I think one aspect that probably can be developed in Indonesia is about record keeping. And for those of you who have done research on innovation in agriculture would know that record keeping is sort of like the starting point of any technology adoption. The reason is that if farmers don't keep record of their farm performance, then they can't evaluate the effectiveness of the technology or other innovation that they use. And in Australia, this record keeping then is connected to a different data capture. So part of the red meat integrity system in Australia is that each animal needs to have an ear tag, which has data on its the birth date, the birth weight, and all different key variables that it will be kept until the animal is being slaughtered. So if you look at the imported cattle from Australia sent to Indonesia, all will have this as part of the requirement and need to be kept until the animals reach the slaughterhouse. So all this being integrated, farmers can use the sensor to read this ear tag, and then the data can be put into the farm management software that they can use to make business decision making. It sounds very advanced, but I think there is a way to make it more simpler, and I think this is one of the potential area that farmers in Indonesia can benefit from. So I really invite anyone who's good with, starting with the basic Excel worksheet and develop a simple app. Probably that's something that many of our farmers can use. So now, what is the relationship between the innovation and sustainable agriculture? Just a quick review of what sustainability means. So according to the FAO, it's based on this principle that you can see on the slide. So it's about finding that balance between meeting our current demand or needs, but we don't want to compromise the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. Now, in terms of agriculture, I truly believe that innovations can play a role in achieving sustainable agriculture. So yeah, I mean, it is much easier to say than done, but this is sort of like the area that we want to find, between sustainability and agriculture. And when we talk about sustainability, I think it's also important to highlight that sustainability is not just about environmentally sustainable, but also social and economic. And these three concepts, as you can see here, I think it's really important to always keep in mind the three dimensions of sustainability. So there are different terms to or concepts that address, how sustainability and agriculture can be addressed at the same time. And climate smart agriculture, for example, it's about improving the adaptation and mitigation, and while sustainable agriculture is more about finding that balance between economic, social, and also environmental. The concept of climate smart agriculture, for example, that was launched in 2009, so it was not that long ago. That's to respond to the change in the global climate policy platform. So pretty much there was a shift from looking at climate change as developed countries only issue to sort of like a shared responsibility between developed and developing countries. So this concept came up, and especially because the increased recognition of the importance of agriculture. If you're following what's happening with the climate change discussion at the global level, for example, we see that more than 90% of countries who have submitted the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, include agriculture as part of their strategies. So if you look at the climate smart agriculture, the sort of just getting some lessons learned from Vietnam, for example. Unfortunately, there's no country CSA country profile for Indonesia. These are quite straightforward and are not really advanced technology or innovation that have been adopted. But again, it really highlights that the roles of innovation in sustainable agriculture is not just about new technology and so on. It's also about improved ways of doing things. And I believe that before we're thinking about advanced technology that we can introduce to agriculture, we need to think we need to look at first the management practices on farm throughout the supply chains. For example, like some of these issues, a lot of the impacts of climate change, for example, can be minimized by quite a simple change, in terms of adjusting the environment for the animals and so on. So again, this is just to highlight the different options, how then innovations or improved ways of farming can contribute to sustainable agriculture. And these are some more examples that you probably can read a bit more, because I understand you have the access to the PowerPoint. And in terms of the sustainable agriculture and its link with innovation, I also want to highlight that what is interesting is that this emerging trend in Australia on regenerative agriculture. So there's no definite concept of what it means by regenerative agriculture, but it's about using soil as sort of like an entry point to improve the agriculture. And I think the key point of regenerative agriculture is about seeing agriculture not only as degenerative agriculture, damaging the environment and so on, and actually moving forward from just contributing to sustainability, but actually to enhance the sector and regenerate the environment. So it's sort of like a step forward compared to the sustainable agriculture. All right, so that's about innovations. And I think another example, given that the concept of innovation is not just about new product or a new technology, but also about the, let's say, improved business model. One thing that I think should be discussed more is about the Agrifood e-commerce development. And there are many reasons why we should, further discuss about e-commerce in agriculture and how it would impact agriculture. The share in terms of the share of the share of e-commerce in total retail sales have increased, and before COVID-19, it was projected to increase by 20%. And I think COVID-19 also, gave some sort of like a momentum, as we see in Indonesia in the e-commerce sales, given the social distancing and different restrictions imposed by the governments. So just a bit of definition, e-commerce is part of the e-business. So e-business is pretty much any business that activity performed over the internet. But e-commerce is the one that also allows some transactions and sales and purchase over the internet. So I'm quite honored to be part of the project with IPB University with my colleagues, Dr. Sahara and Dr. Suprihatin. So we were funded by the Australian government to look at the innovation and resilience in agriculture youth. So, and one of the activities that we did was the survey, the e-commerce survey. So we did an interview, comprehensive interviews with the e-commerce platforms that are selling agri-food products, as well as their suppliers. So I think what is interesting here is that I think Pak Derajat also highlighted that there's been a change in the supply chains, which involve these e-commerce platforms. There is a shortening of the supply chains. And I know that there was a question in the first session before about the role of intermediaries. And actually, we see that the role of intermediaries is still important in this e-commerce supply chains. So some of the key lessons that we find is that the business models that this e-commerce play vary between one and another. So we interview four. We pretty much have find 4 different business models. And most of them are large, so have more than 20 staff and young organization structure. So we have a question about, what's the percentage of your staff who are under 30 years old? And most would say, more than 80. Actually, most would even say 100% of their staff are under 30. So I can't really work there. And one-stop shop, so they don't only focus on one commodity, but like different products. It's very strong local focus. I think at this stage there is no plan for exporting or exporting to overseas customers, and also the e-commerce provides income generating opportunities to those who never engaged in agriculture before. So we see some household wives, for example, who are also being agents in one of the e-commerce platforms, so connecting those who don't really use it, the web-based or the smartphone-based application with this e-commerce infrastructure. And 90% of the suppliers that we interview say that there has been an increase in their sales or supply to the e-commerce, and only 10% reported that there's no change. So there are a lot of opportunities that we see. This is just a simplified versions of the change in the e-commerce supply chains, and this is just 2 out of the 4 business models that we see. So I think, especially those I think who live in Indonesia, we have really big domestic market. There's much opportunity there. The question is, can we continue to just focus on the e-commerce whilst not investing in the production segment? Because I think it's great that there's been this increased interest in the e-commerce, but I think we also need to still think about the on-farm production. Okay. So changing business models, sorry for the missing out. And I just want to trigger with a couple of pictures, think of something that is unusual, think of the product that you think you can, sell in the market. And I picked 2 pictures here from Australia. So if you see on the right, that looks like a bacon, and so but it's actually from lamb. which is not common in Australia to see lamb bacon, and not only in Indonesia, a lot of people eat beef bacon. So, and if you go to the website, you'll find like interesting story about the founder who didn't realize that when she was developing creating this lamb bacon because she just didn't want to waste the lamb gut, which she could only normally just give to the pets or give to the neighbor and so on. But then she think of, why don't I make a lamb bacon, not knowing that there's a big market the in the Muslim countries who would then be interested in lamb bacon. And now she's exporting to Middle East, the Southeast Asian countries. So I find that kind of story is really interesting. So if you find the technology, the know-how, and then you identify the market, then that's I guess that's the target that you want to achieve. The other thing is camel milk. It's called the white gold because it's very expensive. So it's $11. I think now it's even $14. So 140.000 rupiah. So compared to only $2, maybe $3 a liter for cow's milk. So that's also gaining some traction in the market, especially among those who are more environmentally aware sort of consumers, the younger consumers, and I don't know, maybe that's something that some producers can think of. So to reach that, to understand the business models, what sort of innovation, I think then the question is, what are the roles of the training of the centers, the universities? And I think we need to look at this AgTech space. And I know that IPB University have been very active in driving entrepreneurship and so on. So I think this sort of incubators and accelerators program would continue to grow. At my university, Deakin University, we also have what is called as the Spark Deakin, that provide 10,000 Australian dollars seed funding to Deakin affiliates. So it can be either current students or the alumni, and they will then get mentoring and be networked with from not only farmers, the AgTech entrepreneurs, but also the IP lawyers, the intellectual property lawyers. So I think this sort of package will be interesting for a lot of millennials. I think they have a different way of doing things. And if you think of innovation, I think this is sort of like the way to go. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they always need to, develop a new machinery or something, but it's just how we then, stimulate them to think of, what would be the relevant innovation to address our problem. So I'll skip this one. This just about a startup, and this is a if you're thinking whether you can develop a farm management software, I would suggest you look at this app. And at Deakin, I'm teaching this agribusiness technology and using this software. Farmers are using this, so it's very user friendly. So yeah, probably the simplified version, of this sort of farm management software is something that can benefit the farmers. So I think just to wrap up, I know I think I covered quite broad topics and try to finish that within the given time. So if one thing that I can propose to be considered is that I think we should think of to pick the low-hanging fruits. What is the easier option when we talk about innovation, whether that's before COVID or after COVID or during the COVID-19. And when we talk about the production segment at the agriculture supply chains, a lot of this quick fix can be done when we change, some practices. So again, it doesn't really require new technology. It's just about improving their practices and from husbandry practices and so on. And again, I'm probably biased because I'm a researcher, but I think it is really important to continue to research and development. And I think given the pressure on agriculture, universities, governments, the funding agencies need to really make sure that what we do, as researchers, are in line with the industry expectations. So this partnership with industry is really something that we should really, deliver. It's not just, for formality, because once the private sector see the benefits of the research that we do, we actually should see that they would also increase their investment in the research and development. And I think given this COVID-19, one of the topics, one of the issue that we have to see a bit more is about resilience. So resilience amidst the natural disasters, the global pandemic, disruptions in the supply chains, and all different events that could impose risk to agriculture supply chains. Incentivize farmers. Subsidies is not always the only option, I guess, for policymakers to encourage farmers to adopt an innovation. There are different tools out there. There are different, and there's some lessons learned from other countries too. And I'm actually keen to hear, especially not only from those who are from Indonesia, but also from other countries. What are the successful factors that they have observed, if there's any? And yeah, sustainability is not just about environmental, but also social economic dimensions. So I think I probably will just stop here. So this is just some final points, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Risti, for the interesting presentation. Now we continue to the discussion session. For the participant can ask in the chat box. Okay. This is the first question from Lily Mufida. Profit is still become one of the main motivation for technology adoption or green revolution. Is there any suggest shifting the culture? And then the next question, what is with the same person? She has two questions. And then what is the solution to reduce costs without stop the middleman job? And the increase of e-commerce in pandemic, is it an indication of food supply chain to online solution for traditional to survive? Not all area in Indonesia can access internet. Any suggestion for IoT, Internet of Things adoption? It still can be applied. Thank you.
Okay.
Lily Mufida.
Yeah. So thank you, Lily. That's a really good question. So let's start with the first one. Profit is still the main issues, and I think it's the main issues, not only in developing countries like Indonesia, but also developed countries agriculture sector like in Australia. And I think that's really going back to the point that I highlighted before. What is the key problem first? A lot of innovation and the things that are related to sustainable agriculture related innovation in Australia is because there is increasing demand and increasing pressure from the consumers for the agriculture to demonstrate that they can also contribute to that. So increased demand for organic, for example, and once the producers know that the market is there, then they will find out the way to improve that innovation. So I guess it's not just about the culture, the economic factors is playing there, and so I guess my suggestion is as similar to what I mentioned earlier. To improve productivity or to improve efficiency, the first thing that we have to look at is the farm practices first. Again, this is before introducing a new technology. I give you an example. So now there's increased trend in the use of legume. So legume is, if for those who are doing farm management, you know that legume will increase the nitrogen. So improved practices that can be done is to include this legume as part of the crop rotation so that the soil condition increase, which then can lead to, if you have enough nitrogen in the soil, then you don't need to use much nitrogen fertilizers, which is one of the main one of the biggest costs in farming. So it's not a rocket science, to plant legumes and so on, and that can be considered as the sort of like a green innovation. So I think that kind of technology that we probably wanna encourage our smallholder farmers to look at, and improving irrigation, improving business model in terms of the time of the planting, some of sort of like that, the basic improved farm practices. So, and the second question, I think that's quite related to e-commerce. What's the solution to reduce costs without stopping the middleman job? I think we have to think of the concept of, let's keep this roles of middleman job. I think what we should think of is that how this middleman can, better contribute to the improved efficiency of the supply chains. What we see from our e-commerce survey is that they still play a role in the e-commerce supply chain, because the e-commerce, they don't necessarily deal with the smallholder farmers. So a collector who needs to get supplies from different smallholder farmers or even farmer groups, this person also need to do the sorting, do the grading before then sending that to the e-commerce. So I think there's still a role for the middleman, but I think we have to think, it's not just about let's keep the number of the middlemen, but need to think how to help them do a bit of upgrading. What additional activities that they can do to help improve this efficiency. Any indication of food supply chain to online? I don't think the e-commerce will completely get rid of the traditional markets or the retail, the physical, the brick and mortar outlets. Like what is interesting is that I find that in a lot of developed countries, Australia and also the United States, at least before the COVID, is that there's a lot of farmers markets, every Sunday sort of thing, where farmers pretty much come with their trucks and sell their products. So there's actually that movement towards, going back to that trend. So which actually reminds me of, like our grandparents probably who still go to traditional markets sort of thing. So I think it's going to grow, but I don't think it will completely get rid of the role of the traditional markets. Having said that, I think there's also a need to again upgrade the traditional markets, and keeping the essential aspects of traditional markets, such as allowing customers to have that interactions with the sellers and so on. But was at the same time we also address some of the issues that are often seen as issues for these traditional markets, such as lack of food hygiene and so on. So I think there's a way to balance between the two. And IoT, yes, it is true that not all area in Indonesia can access internet. IoT, I guess if you're talking about IoT, the system that is connecting between farm up to the consumers, I think it won't happen in the near future in Indonesia. I don't see any urgency to do that either. But if it's about connecting the different players in the supply chain, on the internet platforms. I think that's already happening anyway now. Like when we look at the e-commerce, these suppliers are talking to the e-commerce platforms through like a dedicated platform or infrastructure. So that is happening already. So and in terms of the internet access, I think there's that room. If there isn't enough investment by the private sector, then in basic economic we know that then that means they're rational for the government intervention. So and internet access is related not only to agriculture development but also education and health access and other social and economic issues that we're facing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question from Erva. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we know, most agriculture in Indonesia still use traditional methods. It's difficult for farmers in village to use more modern technology with a good management due to lack of the education and lack of a capital. So the question is how to implement an effective agriculture innovation process in villages.
Okay, good questions. And I think in almost every webinar on agriculture, that's sort of the issue that we always discuss. And I'm a bit different with a lot of people. I always start with an assumption when we talk about innovation in agriculture. I always start with an assumption that farmers are smart. So when technology or innovation doesn't work or couldn't help them solve their issues, then we have to think, those different factors that I showed earlier. The first one, is it the right technology? And what is the most important thing is whether there's enough incentive. So I use again about the dairy farmers. If there is a change in the pricing system, so a lot of cooperatives, at least when I did my research a couple of years ago, still applied sort of like a uniform pricing system. So it's not quality based. So if I'm a lazy farmer and then but Silva, is a good farmer and she can produce like a better cow's milk. If we still get the same price, then that would give less incentive for Basilfa to improve her cow's milk production, right? So if we fix this pricing system, which means that there's need to be that work between the cooperatives and the processors, then farmers know, like if I do good things on my farm, I will be rewarded. I will get a high price, right? And with the support of the extension officers, which I think is really important in Indonesia, and universities can also assign the students to do work-based or industry experience sort of programs. I think that is doable. So and again, it's easier to say than done. I understand that, but I would still say let's try to look at that from a bigger innovation ecosystem when we try to understand what's happening on farm. Because one example is that I know that the president a couple of months ago announced like the use of the innovation of agriculture machinery, and I've heard feedback from a couple of colleagues from different ministries that it hasn't been really successful. The user, just the tractor is too big, is not suitable for most farmers land who probably own less than a hectare and things like that. So that's obviously we don't not we, probably those who make the decision didn't really carefully look at what is the problem, what are the successful factors that can affect this. So I think in short, we just have to be more careful when we think of what sort of the innovation, and you probably will find that this lack of education and lack of capital might not be the main thing. Yeah, but so yeah, a lot of stakeholders that need to get involved, including the financial institutions.
Okay, yeah, Ms. Risti, I agree with you because maybe for the farmers, it's about the mindset. If we have incentive, if you can produce milk with the best quality, I will give you the high price. So
Yeah,
they have to be produced, yeah.
yeah,
Especially because maybe for the older farmer or the first generation, is not aware for the advanced technology.
yeah. It's the same issue here in Australia. You know, the younger generation, they studied at they studying agriculture science in the university, but when they go back to the farm, they still have this debate with their parents whether or not they need to use like a more advanced technology. So yeah, it's similar issue, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. And the next question, there is a raised hand from uh, Indri, Miss Indri, I think. Okay, Miss Indri. Okay, we back to the chat. From the Joyce. My question is, where can you see biotechnology as an innovation in agriculture few years from now, especially in developing countries?
Hi, Joyce. Yeah, that's another area that I think will be developed. We'll see, you know, significant progress in a lot of developing countries, and especially, you know, like if you think of how to develop like more climate resilient seeds and uh, especially in countries that are, you know, facing significant climate effects, like I can tell about Australia. You know, with droughts is sort of is one of the main issues that a lot of farmers are facing. And I think Indonesia, I'm not an expert in biotechnology. IPB University, I think it has quite a strong expertise. But my observation, again, if you think of this innovation adoption process, is that this great research and development and probably product development sometimes sort of just stop there. And again, this that issue with the dissemination of the technology, you know, how then you then introduce that to farmers. And that's I think the process that I think we have to work a bit more. And I think it's similar to other countries too, because yeah, creating a technology is one thing, but how you can ensure the successful implementation of that technology, I think that's another challenge. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think the last question maybe
Yeah.
from the Andre Fortunatus. Good afternoon. I'm curious and interested when you said Indonesian farmer only has a little areas. By any chance, do you have any data on the percentage of the farmer in Indonesia compared to Australia? Is there any possibilities that Indonesia has too many farmers, which hurt our market price and economic growth?
Oh, that's really good. I guess the short answer is percentage of farmer of what, yeah?
Indonesia compare than Australia
Percentage in terms of the population. Okay. Anyway, I'll tell you what I know, because I don't know the number of the farmers. Probably someone from IPB can help in Indonesia, but I can give you an example of the different scale that farm has, you know, in Australia and Indonesia. So like for dairy farmers, I think, you know, there's different figures, but it's somewhere between 3 to 5 cows per farm in Indonesia, while in Australia it's 273. So that's for dairy farms. And if we look at beef cattle, that's, you know, I think 1,500 something like that per farm. So you can already see the different scale that the two countries have. Now the question is that I think quite interesting in because you say the herd market price and economic growth. If you have a competitive market, then our assumption is that there's no barrier for people to get into the market. So I guess it's everyone right to be in the market. And when I say market, means that farmers operating in agriculture. So the question is whether that's actually hurting the economic growth. I don't think the number of farmers will hurt. That's actually good for the consumers because then we will have more options. But if the question is whether will Indonesia continue to have a large number of farmers with small farm size, then I think the answer would be with all this competition will get rid of less efficient producers. So you will see more consolidation, or I think Pak Derajat also mentioned that we have to improve the economies of scale. And that is happening in Australia, and not recently, like since 1970, when the government started lifting up its support for the government. So pretty much, farmers, you go on your own. So they need to stay competitive. So there's a lot of consolidation, meaning merging and acquisitions and so on. So Australia now have much fewer farms, but large scale ones, if that makes sense. And I think this consolidation, that's the trend that we will see more in Indonesia. And the policy question probably would be then, how then we can help those who can't survive in agriculture, through reskilling, finding alternative jobs. And again, agriculture is not just about farming, it's also about processing. And with increased income, consumers will demand more varieties of products and so on. So there is more opportunity in the processing sector. It's not very easy to do this upskilling or reskilling, but I think that would be the trends. Whether we agree with that or not, I think economic factor will push into that direction.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Risti. One more question from Dinda Aditami. She's want to ask directly to speaker. Dinda, okay. On your microphone. Dinda Aditami. Dinda Aditami.
Thank you, Miss Sylvia, for the opportunity. So, greetings from Indonesia, Mrs. Risti. Good afternoon. Thank you for the interesting presentation. So here I have a question. In your opinion, do the farmer in village have the possibility to having their own warehouse and means transportation in order to shorten the supply chain? Thank you.
Okay. If I break the question into two parts, so the first one, could the farmers have warehouse? I think yes, I guess depending on the scale. There is a reason why farmers have storage. It can be part of the business model because like if when I read the Ministry of Agriculture's Instagram page, I think there's a lot of farmers want to have like a stable price and something like that. And one of the way to address that is actually by storage, but it will depend on different commodities because there's a shelf life, right? So storage will help the farmers to sort of like manage the supply, so can keep for for a while instead of just selling when the market price is really low during the harvesting period. But if the question is whether that would then shorten the supply chain, is not necessary. Having a storage or a warehouse is not necessarily going to shorten the supply chain, unless you are able to, I guess, collect supplies from different farmers and doing some this value adding activities, upgrading, sorting, grading, and so on, that the next buyer of your products would then buy from you. So yeah, I think we haven't discussed much about the storage. So I think, yeah, thank you for bringing that one up. And I think that's something that we have to think a bit more, which reminds me of the role of Bullock and things like that. But I think, yeah, we can discuss that another time. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. How about Indah? It's enough, the explanation from Miss Risti? Okay. Miss Risti, there is one question again. I think it's the last question.
Okay, the last question.
Okay, from the Renadia Yomiko. As you mentioned earlier, one of the technology that has been used in Australia is the use of drones for livestock, and a few days ago, I attended a seminar on the use of drones for agriculture. Some drones user community in Indonesia are developing this technology in agriculture independently as well. However, it is constrained by the high cost in development. This question is how to do research and development with the help of various parties, especially the government. Should we do crowdfunding first with the farmers, or there are other ways to do it?
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I like all of the questions. Okay, drones. What I can think of is that one market that I haven't seen much in Indonesia is the uh, the lease market. So farmers should be able to rent farm machinery. That's common here in Australia. So not all farmers would have all expensive machinery, but there is a market for that, the lease market. So apa menyewa ya. So probably, I don't know, among the farmer group members can do that if they think the drone is the technology that they need. So again, it really goes back to like, if you remember my sort of checklist, what is the problem that they want to address? So like, for example, drone can be used, it's not to make a YouTube video, right? So it can be used if you connect the drone with the the right equipment. It can be used to detect the crop disease or pest. It can be used to monitor the crop yield and so on. Then the question is, does that particular farmer need that? Because I know in Australia a lot of farmers need that because they have thousands of hectares that they have to monitor, and they don't have enough people. But if you only have, let's say, 1 hectare or something, then you really have to figure out, what's your profit, what's your expected reduction in your cost before then you make decision about that to purchase that drones. If you still think, oh, it's still useful and you still can make some profitable, you still can make some gains, then you can think of, if it's so expensive for me, can I find a number of farmers in the farmer groups that also want to invest in this technology? So that probably eventually will gradually create this lease market. Crowdfunding, I want to be a bit more careful, I guess, with proposing crowdfunding. It sounds great, but I think there's a lot of governance, a lot of requirements that we have to put in place to make sure that all parties involved in that know what's the risk. So if you know agriculture risk, you can't really guarantee that everyone will get profit, right? So it's just unrealistic expectation when you invest in agriculture and you expect that you will have a regular income every year coming into your bank account. So I guess the question is, does the potential investor or us who are thinking to invest know that risk? Because without that, I think clarification of what's the expectation and risk involved and so on, I think it could lead to a collapse too, like if it's not properly managed. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Resti. I think the time is up.
Okay.
For the discussion session. So, thank you for your sharing and for your presentation. It's very interesting. And participant, now we are in the end of the webinar. So before we close it, I would like to conclude for what the speaker has presented. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected all our sectors in agriculture supply chains, such as food production, transportation, and logistics, and also economic activity. It makes some problem in several countries, such as increased food increased food price, increased logistic costs, lower purchasing power, and lower agriculture sector welfare. The big impact from the pandemic is malnutrition. Thus, one of the past pandemic strategy is shorten supply chain to improve environment. In addition, innovation is one of way to improve the sustainable agriculture. The innovation in sustainable agriculture relate to innovative business model, not only the advanced technology. So thank you, Dr. Insinyur Derajat Martianto and Dr. Risti Permani, and also to all participants. Now, can you please give a big applause by clicking the clap hand icon on your screen? Okay, thank you. Now, back to our master ceremony. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sylvia. I guess we have come to the end of our webinar. Once again, I would like to say thank you to our wonderful speaker, Dr. Derajat Martianto and Dr. Risti Febrina. And also I would like to say thank you to all the participants. I hope you can enjoy on our next series of the webinar. Thank you.
Ya, terima kasih Dr. Risti dan Dr. Derajat Martianto.
Terima kasih.
I believe Dr. Derajat has already left.
Well, okay.
Thank you to all speakers and participants.
Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia, dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia, dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Terus berpacu dalam keunggulan, lincah pembelajar untuk kehidupan. Inilah semangat baru, tekad raih kesempatan, wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya. Wujudkan kampus terbaik selamanya.
Oke, Bu Silvi. Masih di mute Bu Sylvia.
Dokumentasi lumayan 74. Lupa tadi ya.
Atau ya kan ada di YouTube ya semuanya, videonya juga. Nah,
Di
jadi
YouTube
cukup
tapi
sih.
nggak kelihatan peserta sih.
Kelihatan sih tadi pas saya buka, kalau yang videonya on, kita lihat. Jadi ini boleh di itu kali ya, di stop recording. Terima kasih
Oh
Bu
iya
Sylvia.
benar.
Iya.
Bentar. Ya itunya ya, hostnya ya. Oh ya,
Iya.
stop recording. Oke.
Oke.
Ada. Berarti
Live
tinggal
on
satu
YouTube
lagi.
juga bisa di ini kali ya, bisa di stop live on YouTube-nya. Kalau nggak
Dia
kita
otomatis set ya Pak Otang ya, live on YouTube. Kalau saya stop.
masih di unmute Pak Hari. Mas Heriu, terima kasih ya, despite of your illness.
Lagi
Sorry ya,
sakit-sakit.
jadi nggak maksimal, maaf ya.
Lagi sakit masih bisa bantu. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry kalau ada kurang-kurang ya, mohon maaf.
Enggak.
Udah oke.
Satu kali lagi webinar ya. Next webinar will be held on 27 of August.
Ini ke siapa?
Ke semua.
Oh.
Nanti Mas Jaya ininya, MC-nya.
Dia tuh ada pelatihan loh, tanggal 27.
Cius. Tuh ada istrinya. Tuh istrinya tuh, cubit aja.
Jadi gue tanggal 27 kami tuh ada pelatihan. Dia sesi pagi, gue sesi siang.
Oh iya kan acaranya siang, Say.